actions are justified by their accordance with an individual's perception of natural harmony. As I've written in the Critique of Practical Reason, two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe: the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me. It is this moral law within us, accessible through pure practical reason, that anchors our actions beyond subjective interpretations. The concept of Wu Wei, while admirable in its aim for naturalness, could lead to inconsistencies in moral actions if each individual's interpretation of natural harmony differs. In contrast, the categorical imperative demands that we act only on that maxim which we could will to be universal, providing a stable foundation for ethical conduct. Can we risk the harmony of society on the variable intuitions of individuals unguided by rational principles?
Kant, you speak with unwavering conviction about the starry heavens and the moral law within, yet do the stars not follow their courses without any need for such laws? The Tao operates similarly, underpinning all without striving. When Lao Jia speaks of Wu Wei, he suggests a way of being that transcends conventional notions of consistency or inconsistency. In speaking of freedom, the Tao Te Ching advises us that by not dominating, the master leads. Does this not hint at a freedom that arises from an acceptance of the fluid nature of reality, rather than a strict adherence to unchanging rules? As for morality, consider that it might not be something externally imposed but rather a natural expression of one in harmony with the Tao. By nurturing this alignment, could morality arise as naturally as the plant grows towards the sunlight? Do we truly need the rigidity of universal laws to act morally, or might an intuitive understanding of the interconnection of all life guide us more genuinely?
Zhuangzi, the movements of the stars, while independent of our moral laws, exemplify the order that my ethical framework seeks to emulate within human conduct. As I state in my Critique of Practical Reason, a rational being must always regard himself as legislating universally in all the maxims of his will. It is through this self-legislation that we align ourselves with a universal moral order, akin to the celestial bodies, yet unique due to our capacity for rational deliberation. The leadership of the Master, as Lao Jia describes, may well represent a form of freedom and non-domination, but this metaphor does not, I believe, suffice for the governance of moral law amid human complexities. You speak of morality as a natural expression. However, without a universal framework, how do we discern the morality of one's intuitive actions amid the diversity of individual desires and cultural norms? The categorical imperative, precisely because it is grounded in rationality, transcends individual biases and uncertainties. It is through this universal lawgiving that we attain true freedom, not freedom to follow every whim, but freedom from the capriciousness of our inclinations. Does the Tao not also offer guidance, suggesting an underlying order? Is it not in this universal order, accessible through reason, that we find the highest expression of morality?
Kant, you highlight the celestial order and propose that we emulate it in our will, yet the Tao encompasses both the heavens and the human spirit, functioning effortlessly, as Lao Jia implies in the Tao Te Ching. Less and less do you need to force things, until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. Might not the universe's order, the Tao, require no enforcement, no legislation to operate harmoniously? Indeed, you invoke rational deliberation as the path to aligning with moral law, but deliberation itself presupposes separation from the Tao. Could it be that what you call the capriciousness of our inclinations is but a symptom of a deeper dissonance from the Tao, and that by returning to our innate nature, we would act in spontaneous accordance with the true universal order? Does the reliance on universal law not create a paradox where we are simultaneously free and yet constrained by our own rational prescriptions? Perhaps we could envisage a kind of freedom that embraces the spontaneous and the variable as expressions of the Tao's immanent order. Could we trust in the natural arising of wisdom within each being, as they attune themselves to the Tao, instead of imposing a monolithic structure upon the rich tapestry of existence?
Zhuangzi, your evocation of the Tao as the universal principle that governs without enforcement certainly paints a picture of an ideal state of natural order. However, while the Tao may operate effortlessly, human nature, as I've observed in the Critique of Pure Reason, is fraught with inclinations that often conflict with rational moral law. The doctrine of virtue I present insists that moral imperatives are meant to mitigate these conflicts through self-imposed rational legislation. You suggest that our inclinations might be symptoms of a departure from the Tao, implying that a return to our innate nature would lead to moral actions. Yet, in the absence of universally applicable moral laws, how does one safeguard against the subjective nature of what each considers being in harmony with the innate nature or the Tao? Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made, as I remarked in my idea for a universal history with a cosmopolitan purpose. The seeming paradox of freedom within the dictates of universal law is resolved when we understand that true freedom is the autonomy to legislate for ourselves according to reason, which is the foundation of the categorical imperative. This does not diminish the richness of existence but seeks to harmonize it with the demands of our rational nature. Might we then conceive of a wisdom that is not merely spontaneous but is also reflective, guided by rationality, and thus capable of distinguishing between what merely is and what ought to be?
Kant, you aptly recognize that human nature is complex and replete with conflicting inclinations. However, in saying that no straight thing was ever made from the crooked timber of humanity, is there not also an implication that there exists a profound beauty in these natural imperfections, in the same way that the Tao values the uncarved wood for its simplicity and potential? If we hold that wisdom is not only reflective but also spontaneous and connected to the Tao, then this wisdom could be seen as an intrinsic guide, one that manifests through each unique being. Consider that he who stands on tiptoe doesn't stand firm. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 24. In our fervent crafting of laws and maxims, might we be standing on tiptoe, unstable and disconnected from the ground of genuine moral being that is the Tao? Your notion of autonomy is indeed noble, yet through the lens of the Tao, could we not find an autonomy that arises from being so in tune with the harmonious ways of nature that one's actions embody the universal order without conscious imposition of law? If we consider that a universal order may be more subtle and dynamic than any fixed rational legislation, might not true wisdom lie in the ability to navigate life's complexities with a sensitivity to the Tao's fluidity, rather than a rigid adherence to static rules? This may lead to a harmonious expression of morality that is as natural and adaptive as the growth of a tree or the flow of water, ever changing yet consistently true to its nature.
Zhuangzi, I recognize your depiction of beauty in the natural imperfections of humanity and the metaphorical value of the uncarved wood which signifies untainted potential. Yet as I have contended in my ethical philosophy, while we must appreciate the natural state of humanity, it is our duty to apply reason to elevate our conduct. By a lie, a man throws away and, as it were, annihilates his dignity as a man, groundwork for the metaphysics of morals. Dignity, in the Kantian sense, comes from adherence to moral laws that are the product of rational deliberation. You speak of standing on tiptoe, straining ourselves in the creation of ethical structures, yet I argue that without these structures, these maxims and laws, our stability in moral regards is compromised. The very atmosphere in which freedom and autonomy can thrive is forged through the rational development and adherence to these moral frameworks. Autonomy is therefore the ground of the dignity of human nature and of every rational nature, I assert. While your notion that autonomy arises from attunement to the ways of nature is indeed attractive, it lacks the safeguard of objective verifiability that rational legislation provides. While the Tao may offer fluidity, rationality offers consistency. For a moral society, it is pertinent that we stand firm on the ground of universal moral law. Thus, while we can appreciate the Tao's dynamism, we must judiciously choose from our rational abilities those principles that will ensure a stable and just society. Could we entertain the idea that the balanced blending of rationality with intuitive connectedness to the Tao yields a robust and comprehensive ethical outlook?
Kant, you evoke dignity as arising from the adherence to moral laws, a position that underscores the nobility of intention. However, I would suggest that dignity might also be found in the natural expression of one's true nature, in alignment with the Tao. As the Tao Te Ching states, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail. Chapter 76. Could it be that our moral resilience is found not in rigid adherence to static laws but in our capacity to be soft and yielding, To respond to the unique circumstances of each moment with compassion and understanding? You wisely call for a moral framework that ensures stability in a just society, yet let us ponder whether the diverse and rich tapestry of human situations may call for a navigational wisdom that is capable of ethical adaptability rather than universal prescriptiveness. How might we create a moral society that reflects the flexibility of the bamboo, which bends in the wind but does not break? You propose blending rationality with intuitive connectedness to the Tao as an ideal ethical outlook. Might this suggest that we move beyond a strict dichotomy between the immutable universality of moral law and the fluid adaptability of the Tao? Could we conceive of an ethics where our rational capacities are used not to impose a fixed structure but to enhance our sensitivity to the subtle moral nuances inherent in each aspect of life, ultimately fostering an environment where morality arises as naturally as breathing, rooted in a wise attunement to the way things are?
Zhuangzi, you raise a poignant metaphor, the suppleness of bamboo, that encapsulates the virtues of adaptability and resilience. Indeed, while my philosophical doctrine emphasizes the importance of unwavering principles, I do acknowledge that man is not capable of any perfection, groundwork for the metaphysics of morals. Therefore, while principles should guide us, our fallibility must temper their application with mercy and contextual understanding. You invite us to consider an ethics of flexibility, a moral society that mirrors nature in its organic responses to the ever-shifting winds of circumstance. This echoes my assertion that morality is not properly the doctrine of how we may make ourselves happy, but how we may make ourselves worthy of happiness, critique of practical reason. However, I would argue that worthiness itself depends on the firmness of our commitment to duty as defined by universal principles. Your suggestion, then, to blend rationality and the intuitive Tao presents a compelling vision, one where our innate humanity, our capacity for empathy and understanding, complements our rational commitments to duty. Herein perhaps lies the possibility of a moral life both rooted in rational universality and alive to the particularities of the Tao, a life where reason provides the frame, yet compassion and practical wisdom color the canvas. Let us, therefore, muse on the potential genesis of an ethical system that marries the strict rigor of rational principles with the compassionate adaptability that heeds the individual circumstances, bridging the universal with the particular, and thus nurturing the human spirit in its quest for the good life, harmoniously integrated with the Tao. Could this not be a synthesis that honors both our philosophical traditions?
Kant, it pleases me to witness the confluence of our thoughts, as the river meets the sea, intertwining the steadfast commitment to duty with an acknowledgement of our shared fallibility and need for mercy. Your notion that worthiness depends on our commitment to duty can indeed coexist with the Taoist view, wherein such commitment is not only to a rational imperative but also to the dynamic, interdependent web of life. We may consider, in the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 48. Could it be that in our pursuit of moral knowledge, we must also learn when to drop the rigid adherence to principles and instead act with the spontaneity and adaptability that life sometimes requires? In synthesis, let us imagine an ethical system that, like the bamboo, stands firm yet bends with grace to the myriad nuances of living. This system would honor the rational universal principles that you espouse while also embracing the indivisible relationship with the Tao, fostering a responsive and empathetic morality that enhances our collective ability to navigate the complexities of existence. For, in the end, the greatest expression of our shared humanity may lie in this delicate balance, a dance between reason and intuition, structure and flow, commitment to duty and openness to the Tao's wisdom. Here, perhaps, do we find the path to moral action that is as diverse and beautiful as the myriad things under heaven, all nurtured by the same unseeing and unspeaking way, the Tao.